In the heart of the Shenandoah Valley, nestled between the Blue Ridge and Allegheny Mountains, lies the charming town of Staunton, Virginia. And right in the middle of it all sits the Blackburn Inn, a place that has worn many hats over the past 200 years. Located in the town's edge, this stunning inn feels like a step back in time, blending elegant architecture with a rich and sometimes eerie history. Because in a place this old, some stories never truly end. Some spirits, it seems, just aren't ready to leave. It all started in the early 1800s, an era full of bold ideas and big transformations. Let's rewind to 1828, when after the presidential election, a national trend towards humanitarian causes was going on, and the Commonwealth of Virginia was looking to build a new asylum. Due to its proximity to the Valley Turnpike and how easy it would be to move patients, they chose Staunton because Staunton was destined to become renowned for educating two groups that had been left out of the traditional academic process, the handicapped and the women. Believing that beauty in landscaping and architecture could cure mental illness, they chose 80 beautiful acres and began work on the Western State Lunatic Asylum. Architect William Small brought the initial design to life, but as the hospital needs grew, Dr. Francis T. Stribling, the superintendent at the time, decided to expand. Dr. Stribling, who was a huge advocate for compassionate care, called in Thomas R. Blackburn, a former student of Thomas Jefferson, to handle the redesign in the 1830s. And wow, did Blackburn deliver! He added all of the signature Jeffersonian touches, spacious wings, lush gardens, and even a gorgeous cupola crowning the main building. By 1836, this hospital wasn't just functional, it was an architectural masterpiece that emphasized patient care through thoughtful design. Today, there are a total of 26 buildings on the campus, including some residences. As the hospital's story unfolds, its history became more complex, and not always for the better. From 1905 to 1943, Dr. Joseph Spencer DeJarnette served as the director of Western State Hospital, as it was now called. While he's a prominent figure in the hospital's history, his legacy is deeply controversial. DeJarnette was a passionate advocate for eugenics and racial segregation, pushing for compulsory sterilization of those he deemed unfit, including many patients at the hospital. To this class of the unfit belong the insane, the epileptic, the alcoholic, hereditary criminal, the syphilitic, the imbecile, and the idiot, and none of these should reproduce. He was instrumental in influencing Virginia's sterilization laws, which were later upheld in the infamous Supreme Court case Buck v. Bell in 1927. DeJarnette's work reflects one of the darkest chapters in the institution's history, as his policies caused irreparable harm to countless individuals. The bodies of those who didn't survive this torture were buried in unmarked graves in a cemetery at the back of the property. Starting as a sanctuary, complete with terrace gardens and dreamy rooftop views of the surrounding mountains, by the mid-19th century, the growing population changed its idyllic vibe. As overcrowding became a problem and DeJarnette's practices were normalized, techniques such as ankle and wrist restraints, physical coercion, straitjackets, electroshock therapy, and lobotomies were used to deal with patients as well as for DeJarnette's own personal research. After the passage of the Eugenical Sterilization Act of 1924 in Virginia, patients were forcibly sterilized at Western State until the law authorizing the practice was repealed in the 70s. During this time, there's a rumor that one of the doctors who was living on the property hung himself in this home. Maybe it's related to the horrible things that the doctors were forced to do by DeJarnette, or possibly for some other reason. By the time 1976 rolled around, overcrowding had become such a problem that a new and larger facility was built on the edge of town. But they never tore down the old buildings. They just moved out. And guess who the new owners were? The Staunton Correctional Center for Men. Can you believe it? The beautiful old hospital-turned-prison housed inmates for decades. On the plus side, it did provide jobs for the local community. Not much can be found about the building during its time as a prison, but we all know what can happen in prisons and can only assume that there was violence and other strong emotions that would linger. For example, a prison guard who worked there in 1993 reported that inmates would talk about ghosts that they would see outside on the grounds, claiming it was a soldier. And one day while the guard was in the kitchen by himself, he heard someone whisper his name in his ear, very clearly. And with so many buildings on the property not being used to house inmates, those who worked there were allowed to live with their families in some of the houses. A resident shared with me that while she lived in the White House at the front of the property from 1977 to 1990, she never saw anything ghostly, but there were a lot of unexplained noises reported, and things would go missing and turn up in odd places. And going into the basement would make her feel anxious and nauseated, like something didn't want her down there. Could this be a patient trying to warn her? Or maybe an evil residue that was left by the torture disguised as helpful medical procedures that happened there? In 2003, the prison closed for good, leaving these stunning buildings empty and waiting for a fresh start. Fast forward to 2006, when developers Robin Miller and Dan Gecker saw the potential in this historical gem. They envisioned restoring its timeless charm while giving it modern updates. They preserved original details like the heart pine floors, intricate molding, and the iconic spiral staircase that leads to the cupola. But during the renovations, it's reported that a skeleton was found within the walls of what was the prison. No one knows how long it was there or who it belonged to. The Villages at Staunton opened in 2008 when they sold their first condo. The Villages still exist today as the lofts at the Villages of Staunton and Stribling Lane apartments on a portion of the 80 acres, but the remainder of the site was renovated, and in 2018, the Blackburn Inn opened as a boutique hotel and conference center with 49 luxurious rooms, blending historic elegance with contemporary comfort. Today, the Blackburn Inn isn't just a hotel, it's a tribute to Staunton's fascinating past. As a member of Historic Hotels of America, it honors its original architect, Thomas Blackburn, and the many lives connected to its walls. Guests can wander the beautifully landscaped grounds, admire the gorgeous details, and even climb the spiral staircase to the cupola for breathtaking views of downtown Staunton and the Shenandoah Valley. It's a little slice of history brought to life. Of course, with such a storied past, it's no surprise that the Blackburn Inn comes with a side of ghostly tales. Here are just a few spooky stories that people have reported from around the hotel. In the summer of 2018, a group of friends checked in for a relaxing stay, but at 4 a.m. were woken up by the sound of running water. When they went to the bathroom to check it out, they found the shower had mysteriously turned itself on. A couple visiting in 2021 stayed in room 402, which has a stunning view of the grounds. But as charming as the room was, they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. No objects moved, no footsteps echoed, just that unsettling sense that they weren't alone. Dogs sense everything, don't they? One guest's normally chill dog suddenly started growling at a corner of the room, eyes fixed on something invisible. At the same time, the bathroom lights flickered, casting odd shadows. Needless to say, the guest was left wondering if the inn's past inhabitants were making their presence known. While sleeping in the room next to the elevator, Chris woke up to something lifting his legs 3 feet off the bed and a black shadow standing at the foot of the bed. A local resident was out shopping with his brother and mom when they ran across a chair in an antique store in Lexington, Virginia. The label said the chair was purchased at auction at Western State Hospital. He had never seen or felt what poured over him when he landed eyes on that chair. It looked to be manufactured around the 1920s. It had arm shackles and ankle shackles, and they could feel the pain and human suffering coming off of it. His mom reached her hand out to touch it, and he grabbed her hand to keep her from doing so. He stated that it appeared to have chunks of dried skin tissue dried to one of the arm shackles, but he wasn't really sure what it was. He said he never forgot it, or how it made him feel, and he wishes he never saw it. So whether you're a history buff, a ghost story enthusiast, or someone who just loves a cozy yet sophisticated escape, the Blackburn Inn has a little bit of everything that's a perfect blend of beauty, history, and just a touch of the supernatural to keep things interesting.